Nobody knows why Lake Chad disappeared. The lake's dark secret. The thirsting reason your own blood carries the same salt that once filled an entire inland sea. And in 1963, Chad, Africa, that sea started disappearing. And by the time it was done, it had stolen the water source for 30 million people. Your body is 60% water. Every cell inside you runs on the same fragile balance that used to sustain the fourth largest lake on Earth. Lake Chad wasn't a puddle. It was massive, bigger than some countries, feeding 4 nations, giving life to fish, farms, herds, and millions of human beings who built their entire existence around its shoreline. Then in just a few decades, it began to vanish. Not slowly, not gently. It shrank by 90%, and nobody could fully explain why. Scientists blamed drought. Governments blamed farmers. But the numbers didn't add up. The water was disappearing faster than the sky could possibly be stealing it. Here's the part that should unsettle you. In the 1960s, Lake Chad covered nearly 26,000 square kilometers of Central Africa. By the 2000s, it covered less than 1,500. That's not erosion. That's not a bad rain year. That's a body of water the size of a small sea being erased inside a single human lifetime. Satellite images from NASA show the retreat like a wound closing in reverse, the blue shrinking inward, year after year, leaving cracked earth where boats used to float. Locals who once fished from wooden canoes now walk for hours across dry lakebed just to find a trickle. Entire villages that were built on the shoreline are now stranded miles from any water at all. And the official explanation, climate change plus overuse, never quite covered the gap. The lake was losing water at a rate that outpaced every model. Something else was pulling it down. That's when researchers found the second culprit hiding beneath the obvious one. Irrigation. Not rain loss alone, human extraction, on a scale nobody tracked. Farmers upstream, desperate for water in an increasingly arid region, dug channels and dams that quietly rerouted the rivers feeding the lake before the water ever arrived. The Chari and Lagan rivers, Lake Chad's lifelines, were being drained mile by mile, decision by decision, long before anyone measured the damage. But here's the pattern interrupt. Even accounting for irrigation and rainfall decline combined, researchers still couldn't close the math. There was a gap. A stubborn, unexplained percentage of missing water that neither drought nor human extraction fully accounted for. The lake was disappearing faster than the sum of every known cause. And that gap is still today not fully solved. Remember that salt in your blood, the mineral balance your body guards obsessively, the one that kills you if it swings too far either way. Lake Chad had its own version of that balance, and it broke. As the lake shrank, its remaining water grew shallower, warmer, and increasingly unstable, evaporation accelerating in a feedback loop, each retreating inch exposing more lakebed to sun, more surface to dry air, more water lost to sky instead of returning to the basin. The lake began cannibalizing itself. Meanwhile, the Sahara Desert crept south, year after year, its dry air mass pressing down on the region like a lid, suppressing the rainfall that used to replenish the basin naturally. Some researchers now believe the lake's disappearance wasn't a single cause at all, but 3 forces converging at once: drought, extraction, and desertification, feeding each other in a spiral nobody predicted, and nobody has fully modeled even now. The lake didn't just lose water. It lost the climate conditions that let it hold water in the first place. And once that threshold broke, the shrinking became self-sustaining, almost irreversible, a system collapsing under its own new rules. Scientists studying the remaining fragments have found the lake occasionally, briefly expands again during unusually wet years. Proof the old lake isn't gone, just buried under a broken cycle, waiting for conditions that may never return the same way twice. The human cost is almost incomprehensible. Over 30 million people across Chad, Niger, and Cameroon depended on that lake for drinking water, farming, and fishing. As it vanished, competition for the remaining water turned deadly, herders and farmers clashing over shrinking resources, entire economies collapsing, and armed groups exploiting the desperation to recruit displaced water-starved populations. The United Nations has called it one of the most severe, underreported ecological disasters on the planet, and it's not finished unfolding. Engineers have proposed a staggering solution: a 2,400-kilometer canal transferring water from the Congo River basin to refill Lake Chad artificially. The plan would cost tens of billions of dollars and could take decades. Nobody knows if it would even work, or if the lake's fragile chemistry could survive an injection that massive. So the lake that once rivaled entire seas now sits as fractured remnants on a map, its disappearance still not fully explained by any single cause scientists have identified. If a body of water that size can vanish within one human lifetime, quietly, with the exact mechanism still debated, what does that mean for the water sources you assume will simply always be there?